I've been a macOS user for years and it's what I've always relied on for all my daily tasks. macOS has always been the environment I'm comfortable in, and honestly I know my way around it inside and out, but I've always had that question in the back of my mind. Could I actually live without it? Is macOS really essential, or is it what I've just gotten used to? So for the next 7 days, I'm ditching my Mac and running Linux full time on this HP laptop. I want to see if Linux can actually replace macOS for the things I do every day. What if I just end up calling back to Apple's ecosystem? And that leads to the bigger question, why even bother testing this in the first place? Linux has been steadily gaining desktop market share in its recent years, and as of June 2023, its share had grown 31.3%, marking its highest point ever, and that's excluding Chrome OS, which is based off of Linux, and is also everywhere in classrooms and schools. Now, this is a major jump compared to February 2019, when Linux held only 1.58% of desktops worldwide, showing clear long-term growth. More people are just getting fed up with the restrictions of macOS and Windows, and instead turning to Linux for its freedom, flexibility, and control. It's starting to look like a real alternative for everyday users, and if you've ever taken a step into the tech community, you'll see more and more people use Linux. And that's why I want to try this experiment for myself. I don't want to just read about how good Linux is supposed to be, I want to live on it for a week. And put it through my actual workflow and see if it can truly hold up against macOS. So let's see if it can keep up with my workflow, and let's see if there's really a point in using Linux. Before I continue, let me just remind you that we do have a Discord server, so feel free to join it. The link is in the description. To start this whole experiment, I needed to get Linux installed and running on some hardware that wasn't my daily Mac. For this test, I went with the HP 17-inch notebook. It's got an Intel Core i7-7500U, 12GB of memory, and I threw in a Patriot 256GB SSD. Now, as for the Linux distro itself, I chose Fedora KDE. I wanted something that struck a balance between being beginner friendly and still offering a polished modern desktop experience. KDE in particular felt like a natural choice coming from macOS. People claim it has a clean design and has tons of customization options, which is perfect for me. Once we were in, I took a good look at the installer. The installer itself honestly impressed me. The whole interface looked clean and modern, way nicer than the outdated clunky Windows installer that most people are usually used to. Everything was just laid out in a straightforward way. Pick your language, select the drive, and you're basically good to go. So I just hit install and let it overwrite my old Windows installation. And within a few minutes, Fedora was fully up and running. And man, this user interface is wonderful. Coming from macOS, I was honestly amused by how polished KDE actually feels. The animations are so smooth and the menus are clean, and it doesn't look dated at all. This user interface is literally on par with macOS's user interface. The file manager in Fedora, aka Dolphin, literally has one of the best / cleanest user interfaces I've seen. Well, in a file manager. Just take a look at both Finder and Dolphin and tell me which one looks cleaner. Dolphin literally clears. And I think it's safe to say that Windows Explorer is out of the question. There's just a ton of stuff in here that I can honestly get used to, like the KDE taskbar. It just looks so good, and it's sleek and doesn't feel bloated with unnecessary clutter. Which leads me on to customization. One of the first things I noticed after getting settled in was just how easy it is to make Linux feel like my system. KDE makes customization stupid simple. All you have to do is right click the desktop, hit edit mode, and suddenly you can move panels around and drop in widgets wherever you want. You can literally just add another panel for more apps. And you can even customize the panel's locations and etc. There's also a pretty cool library of gadgets like clocks or system monitors that you can add straight to the desktop. Now, compared to macOS, where customization basically just stops at changing a wallpaper or even just toggling dark mode on, Fedora definitely clears with this. When it comes to software, Linux has come a long way, and compatibility is way better than it used to be, but it's still a mixed bag depending on what you need. Some of the apps you rely on probably work perfectly fine, while others are missing or sometimes need alternatives, so let's break it down. So, DaVinci Resolve, good news, it works natively on Linux, so my editing is covered. Now, Adobe Photoshop, on the other hand, isn't supported, but an application called GIMP steps in as a free and surprisingly powerful alternative to Photoshop. Steam also happens to be right here with official support, and a lot of games run great thanks to Proton. So gaming should partially be fine, and we'll be able to check that out in a few moments. Now, as for coding, I use Visual Studio Code regularly and it's fully supported too. Pretty much most of the extensions, as far as I know, completely work on Linux, so no headaches there. Now, one very important thing I actually nearly missed out on was the package manager. The built-in package manager in Fedora honestly blew me away with how convenient it is. Instead of hunting down installers online, everything's just in one place. I grabbed OBS Studio, Spotify and Critter, which are surprisingly supported on Linux. It really feels like having an app store that's actually useful, and it makes macOS's app store look boring and useless in comparison. Now it's time we actually get started with using Linux. I'll go ahead and show you guys what exactly I've been doing on my Linux installation over the past 7 days. So I went into this expecting the DaVinci Resolve install to be pretty straightforward, but it quickly turned into more of a process. Blackmagic has the installer right on their website for DaVinci Resolve, so downloading and setting it up feels just like it does on macOS or Windows. But the moment I launched Resolve, I hit an error about zlib, a library, being missing. This meant diving into the terminal, running a couple of commands and fixing it myself. Now, this wasn't the most welcoming out-of-the-box experience I was hoping this would be, but honestly I didn't mind too much. It's the kind of little fix you almost expect when messing with Linux, to be honest. And sure enough, once I handled that, Resolve actually started up. The installation process was pretty much just like any other regular DaVinci Resolve installation, and sure enough, after 5 minutes, once DaVinci Resolve was installed, it was ready to be used. So I opened up DaVinci Resolve and it actually seemed like it was working. Well, you see, at least it looked like it was starting up. The next thing I ran into was a much bigger issue. My GPU wasn't supported. Resolve threw an error about the GPU processing mode, and after a bit of digging around on the Blackmagic forums, I learned that my system's integrated graphics just weren't going to cut it. On Linux, Resolve basically demands a discrete GPU, and without one you're basically stuck. So that meant I had to shelve Resolve for this test and turn to another editor, which was kind of disappointing. So what does this mean? The best option available on Linux without relying on Wine or any workarounds is Kdenlive, which seems to be one of the most popular open source editors out there. And guess what? This application just so happened to be on the really convenient package manager. So with the click of a button, I was basically able to install Kdenlive. It's not as feature-packed or polished as Resolve, but it gets the job done, I suppose. The interface definitely feels a little different, and it honestly took me some adjusting, but I was honestly surprised at how capable it really is, especially considering it's free and actively maintained. The timeline feels snappy when cutting and trimming clips, and dragging footage around was smoother than I expected on this laptop. I was able to throw in some transitions, add a few titles, and even mess with color correction tools pretty quickly. What really stood out to me though was the export menu. It's stacked with formats and codecs, way more flexible than I thought I'd get from a free editor. You can literally export 10-bit ProRes 422, which is honestly great for whenever I'm exchanging compositions between different vendors and editors. Now honestly, it's not quite on the same level as Resolve for heavy projects, but for quick edits, it absolutely gets the job done. Next up was dealing with GIMP, yet another application that was incredibly easy to install that was in the package manager. At first glance, the UI seemed kinda clunky compared to Adobe's much more polished design, but once you start digging in, the tools are all there, they just dug beneath a few menus. So that could be layers, masks, and even brushes. I was able to do the same kind of image touch-ups and thumbnail work I'd normally do in Photoshop without too much of a learning curve. Though I'll admit, some shortcuts and menus definitely took a little getting used to. GIMP natively supports PSD files, which is honestly great because that means you can transport your thumbnails across different editors. Now for the fun part of this video, gaming. The first step was getting Steam installed, and honestly it couldn't have been any easier. All it took was a quick command in the terminal, and within a few seconds I had Steam up and running. just like how I normally would on Windows or macOS. No weird workarounds, it was just a straightforward installation. Once Steam was ready, I dove into installing a few games. CS2 was the first game that I got installed. I then also went ahead and installed Trackmania Nations Forever, a game I play very frequently. Now as for Minecraft, another game that I play pretty frequently, the Minecraft launcher supports Linux natively. All I had to do was basically download it off the website, and it ran perfectly right out of the box. Alright, now let's go ahead and see how CS2 would run on Linux, and well, this one didn't go quite as planned. I launched up expecting at least playable performance, but instead I got stuck in an endless loop of shader compilation. The screen would just sit there for minutes at a time and the fans would spin up as if it was trying to do something. But it just never made it past that point. Now I tried restarting it a few times and just verifying the files and stuff just to see if it would budge, but there was no luck. It was one of those moments where you could just tell the hardware wasn't having it. The Intel integrated graphics in this laptop clearly weren't enough to handle the load, especially with how CS2 depends heavily on shader caching. It's unfortunate because it's one of those titles I really wanted to see working just to prove how capable Linux gaming has become. But I mean, I can't really blame Linux for this one, it's more of a hardware war than anything else. Now if I had a discrete GPU, this probably would have been a completely different story. Now last but not least for this video, Trackmania Nations Forever. And honestly, this one was the biggest surprise of them all. I installed it through Steam using Proton, fully expecting some weird bugs or crashes because the game is honestly known to just bug out or not work in Windows. But in this case it just worked. The game launched instantly and the menus loaded perfectly fine, and once I got into a race, it ran buttery smooth. Frame rates were consistent and the controls actually felt responsive, and there wasn't a single hitch the entire time I played. It genuinely felt like I was running it natively, not through a compatibility layer. Now for an older game like this, it ran far better than I expected, and it really drove home how far Linux gaming has become. After spending a full week using Linux, I can honestly say I walked away impressed. I went into this expecting headaches and constant tinkering, but for the most part, everything just worked. From installing Fedora KDE to customizing the desktop and getting my app set up, the overall experience was surprisingly smooth, and the interface felt modern, the performance was snappy, and I never once had to fight with the system to get basic things done. It genuinely felt like a proper desktop operating system and not just a techie experiment. Now of course, it wasn't all perfect. Some things like video editing and gaming didn't go the way I'd hoped. And DaVinci Resolve had GPU issues that forced me to switch to Kden Live, and while GIMP worked fine as a Photoshop replacement, I guess it still didn't have quite the same polish as Photoshop. CS2 refused to launch properly, likely due to hardware limitations. These moments reminded me that while Linux has come a long way, it still isn't flawless for every workflow, especially on older or integrated hardware. So the main question is, can Linux replace macOS for me? Well, not entirely at least, not yet. For basic use and coding and even some creative work, it's absolutely solid, but for heavier workloads like editing or gaming, macOS feels more consistent and optimized for my needs. But still, I've gained a whole new respect for how capable Linux has become, and with better hardware or a little more time, I can honestly see myself making the switch full time. So if you liked what you saw, then definitely consider liking the video and subscribing. Feel free to join the Discord server too, I'll leave that in the description below. So I'll see you guys for the next video. Bye.